And we're back, listeners. I'm Aaron. I remember who I am this time.
That's good. I'm Chris.
You're Chris.
And we have our special guest, Chel C.
Yeah.
Hi.
So, Chel C, you are very, let's see, you have your own YouTube channel called Mind, Body, Soul, or Mind, Body, Spirit by Chelsea, or with Chel.
Chel.
Holy crap.
Yes.
I'm going to get it right one day. I'm going to get it right one day. But you discuss holistic and alternative ways of health and wellness.
Right.
So why don't you just talk real quick about that?
So instead of everyone resulting or going to medical types of things, like, with medical drugs, anything doctor related, I just want to show people out there that there's an alternative to doing things and that there's, you don't have to keep drugging yourself with anything.
All right. So for the common cold, what would I do for the common cold?
Lots of lemon.
Lemon.
Lemon helps soothe the throat. And for
what about peppermint and honey, though?
Peppermint works too, but I'm just saying, if you want to have it topically done, so if you put peppermint oil on your temples, that helps relieve.
For headache?
Yes. So, just very simple, honestly, just lemon and peppermint. It's just the easiest. I mean, there's no huge big science to it. It's just super, super simple. Peppermint and lemon.
And honey.
And honey.
Great, especially if you're coughing.
Right.
Honey is amazing.
Yes.
If you're, I ever take, I'm hacking.
But it depends on what honey you get, though. You got to get the real, you have to get the good stuff. Yeah. Not the fake shit at, grocery stores. You need the good stuff from farmers.
So you and I, we went to Out for Wings, and that's when I met you. And then I talked to you one time before, briefly, and this is the third time that we've associated with each other. So first I would like to just get to know you.
Okay.
So tell me about your life.
Tell me about my life.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I've always been a total nerd growing up. I kind of stuck to the 3-4, friends, and I wasn't the popular type in high school. So I just kept to my friends and did my studies. Everyone had boyfriends, girlfriends. I didn't date anyone in high school.
Really?
Yep. I just kept to my studies and that was it.
Wow.
Pretty much. And I took a lot of creative writing classes because I'm very left-brained.
Okay. And you like the writing?
Right. And I love pottery as well. I bet you didn't know that about me
Did not know
But
that.
yeah, we took tons of awesome pottery classes and stuff like that. And I would always pass with flying colors.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm very visually creative.
That's totally cool. Do you write anymore?
I do.
Awesome. What do you like to write?
I absolutely do. Whatever comes through, it's intuitively it just flows. The creative sparks keep going and it just comes out. It could be poetry, short stories, anything.
Do you read what you write? Because I used to do a lot of free form writing because it's good for your brain to get things out of your brain.
Right. I do. I actually do have a collection in a box in my basement somewhere with all of my stuff. And it hasn't been touched in years, but I did, at the time read over all my stuff.
I never read anything that I wrote.
Yeah.
I just write.
And I would write some very dark things.
Well, that's what's
very
scary.
Dark. Right. Yeah. Right. And I remember I had shared a piece with my mother. This is bringing back stuff. And she said, "Did you really write that?" And I said, "Yes. Who else would write this?" And it was very personable.
The question is, though, how many people always wrote dark things or drew dark things?
I had a lot of people because we're attracted to the darkness. There's a part of us that there's an equal balance of something, but I felt at that time in my life, I was more drawn to darker things. And I was fascinated with more darker things. So.
Yeah, I would think so too. But when I would do stuff like that too, it would be on the darker side,
right.
with writing. Because I don't know if you knew that, but I'd write every once in a while.
Right.
And it'd be, or mostly music, which that's what you and I have discussed, where I don't have the same sort of music as you do, but yet, if there were certain songs that had dark or more, not ominous, but darker, it was kind of things that I enjoyed that I was writing just because I like the lyrics. and the music of it. And yeah, some people find that and they're like, whoa, what's going on here? Is that a cry for help?
I literally I should go through and try to find myself. But Aaron, I actually wrote, you had to do, in my creative writing class, we had to do a piece on something super, super dark. And I was like super psyched about this because I'm like, I got this, whatever. And I wrote about an anorexic girl.
Oh, really?
And what she looked like. And it actually freaked out so many people that they didn't talk to me for the longest time in school because they thought I was the weird chick.
Oh, I see.
But it got published in our school magazine. So I felt really proud of myself. But it was very dark.
Yeah, well.
It's very dark.
Anorexia is no joke either.
Right.
It's
No, of course not. It's nothing to joke about, but it was so disturbing to people that they're like, holy shit. You think of these things? It's crazy.
Well, I think that, so I never went back and read what I wrote for that exact reason because the mind can be so scary.
Yeah,
for
sure.
What is going on in my brain?
Mm-hmm.
But it also, the other reason I was doing the writing is that it does help you. It's
therapeutic.
So I had a little journal type thing, a composition notebook, and I would just freeform write. And that's very interesting. Right. Maybe someday I'll go back and read it.
And after that point of when I had shared that poem, it was a different thing with my mother. I have not shown her any of my writings since because, some of the stuff was very, very dark.
Yeah. You don't want people calling you up and locking you up.
The question, though, is it still dark or has that changed a little bit?
It's changed over time, but there are times when I can really tap into that creative darkness. I don't like calling it creative darkness, but the other realm of things and really get creative on stuff.
Now, I'm surprised that you've never actually experimented with drugs, especially when you're talking about stuff like that.
No, in fact, I've never touched a drug in my life.
Really?
Or smoked.
You're on the Aaron trip, huh?
Well, you used to drink though.
I did drink. You're not a drinker? Have you had alcoholic beverages?
I do like wine.
Okay.
But I'm not
the occasional glass of wine you love.
But I'm not double fisting it. I'm not drinking it every day. It's once in a blue moon.
Yeah. See, I got all my drinking done in my early 20s for my lifetime.
Interesting.
I did it all at once. Yeah. And then, I tried all the alcohol and then I just couldn't take waking up with a hangover anymore. And this is stupid and it sucks. And I outgrew it, really.
Have you ever tried Hypnotic?
Yeah.
Hypnotic?
Yep, I've had it. Yeah.
I had that for my 21st birthday. No. Was it 20th, 19th? It was one of the younger teen years, and I drank it on my birthday, and I was so out of it. I actually, my family has footage of me not walking in a straight line.
Oh, and I gotta see that.
And all this crazy stuff, and my best friend and I were slashed, we're just gone.
Yeah.
So now here's the question though: when did you start drinking alcohol? At what age? Or when did you, okay, let me rephrase this. When did you first start drinking? And then when were you first drunk? How I just want to know how far apart it was.
I kind of tried it first. I didn't just go hardcore into it. So I remember the first time I actually tried it, it wasn't even that much. It was a little bit of it. And I did Fireball as my first shot. And it was the worst experience of my life because I introduced it. Oh, Fireball. Whoo!
So what age though were you?
I was 19.
Okay. What about you?
I don't remember how old I was, but I remember one of the local neighborhood kids. And this is where, if you're a young guy listening to this, you shouldn't worry about what other people are telling you to do or think, because I think a lot of people out there just get in, a lot of young men do things they would never do if it wasn't for peer pressure. Peer pressure is a real thing.
Oh my God, I know.
And toxic masculinity.
Oh God, don't you even get me started on that.
I love the air quotations.
But one of the dudes that was in my neighborhood came over with a plethora of different types of liquor. And I don't know how old I was, but I just thought I'll drink this and I'll drink that. And then I was just completely hammered after a half hour. And then I'm projectile vomiting everywhere.
God.
And my mom's like, what did you give him?
That's great.
Yeah, it was a horrible time.
Oh, jeez.
And you would think that I would never drink again after that.
Right.
But
and
sure
how
enough,
old were you?
I can't remember. Like a teenager.
Let me guess,
probably.
were you 13, Chris?
Actually, you were pretty close.
Oh.
I was 14.
So close.
So I was 14 when I started drinking and
Yeah.
had drinks. Mm-hmm. And I I got pretty no, like I first started by having a few, and it was like the Smirnoff Ice and that junk, which actually, it's you throw it back and it's not that bad.
No,
like I enjoy it. It's pretty good
yeah,
because
it's pretty easy.
it's like I like the mics and I still
Right.
like that stuff. So the first time I got drunk, like obliterated drunk, was right down the street from my house at a party it was an anniversary party for my neighbors who were, I think it was like their 25th anniversary or something like that.
Oh my God.
So I got so obliterated drunk, and I was 14 years old, but they thought it was fun. Like, because the parents were like, okay, well, everybody's here. You're not going to be stupid or whatever. So, but it took me 5 people to walk me home.
That's bad.
And I just wanted to pass out in front of the freaking sidewalk.
That's so bad. Oh my
goodness. I played so much sports. Like hockey was my life growing up, and I was really concerned with my body. So I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me and a cousin who's a year younger than me, and it took them a good couple years to like talk me into smoking, but eventually I caved to peer pressure. But I didn't start smoking till I was like 18. And then after that, it was off to the races.
Which that's good though, because 18 is actually the legal age.
Yeah.
So like you held out, which is good.
Almost through my teen years, but eventually I caved. But I was more worried about my lungs and my body. I never, which kept me like off like pills and drugs and all sorts of stuff. But I did get hooked on cigarettes, and I drank a lot.
I think it's from seeing, for me, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I've seen people who have taken drugs and been through the whole bit, and it kind of turned me off. Like I wanted nothing to do with it. So I feel like that's why I've been clean for for as long as I have been.
There's a combination of things. So without other than sports, I love music, and growing up, all of my favorite people were dead from drugs. So like they're all messed up from drugs. And growing up listening to musicians who are like, oh, don't do that then, and it wasn't the DARE program that helped me. It was,
oh God, no, the DARE program showed you pretty much what to do.
Drug free's the way to be.
Made me want to do drugs.
There's a song to it.
Yeah.
Oh God.
It's DARE, drug free's the way to be.
Yeah.
I think that DARE probably caused more people to get on drugs or try them?
More than likely.
Because, you were kind of hitting off where you're like, I like sports and I like that, but you also said like you were looking at other people.
Right.
For me, I think it was more like the smear campaign and stuff, and it's like, well, what if that's the case? But then for me, like, because I'll smoke weed all the time, I don't really care. Like, I mean, I don't do it often, but I do enjoy it. It's fun, and it's relaxing, and it's enjoyable. But like the first time, I think I was like 17 or something when I actually smoked for the first time. And that was the whole thing, because it's like, oh, it's going to be a gateway drug and it's going to be all this stuff. And so I'm like, oh, I'm not going to try it. But then I see all my friends doing it and they're still fine. They're functioning. It's like, okay, that's not big a deal. So who gives a shit?
Right.
Well, that's what's interesting to me about people in general, is that you grow up with, for me, like I grew up with music from the 60s, and like there's Janis Joplin, dead. Jim Morrison, dead. Jimi Hendrix, dead. It's like they all died from overdoses or drinking too much, and like there's a lot, like the list goes on and on.
And
so
weren't they all 27 or something?
Yeah.
They're all young, yes.
Yeah, they're all the same age. So, and then just in rock and roll in general, like people are dying. So, and I was like, okay, drugs will kill you. And then in real life, you see people that are messed up. So I'm like, well, plus the hockey helped me. I didn't want to mess up my body. But also I broke my collarbone riding my bike when I was like 14 or 15. And they gave me codeine.
Oh, wow.
And that made me sick for like 3 days. And I never wanted to go through that. I'm like, this is what drugs are? This isn't fun at all. So that kept me off of a lot of, I didn't, and probably just learn it. Like I like to learn things, and I didn't want to be messed up. And you learn from people's mistakes. Well, apparently in the world, a lot of people don't learn from other people in the past
Right.
because they're still out
You got to
there.
do your research too. Like
Yeah.
you got to look at what's really in the drug itself and what the side effects are and how it's damaging your body. So that really changes your perspective on things when you look into it.
Well, and that's what didn't work for me was like the smear campaign of the 90s where they're like, if you take LSD, you're going to be in a mental institution thinking that you're a cup of orange juice for the rest of your life. You want to do that?
I personally like the one where it's the egg and it's like, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs.
Yeah.
And then it's like, this is all your friends and family, and they start beating the shit out of the kitchen. And it's like, that doesn't even make sense.
No. Yeah. It was
or the one where he's like, the kids was supposed to be high, and he gets into like the gun cabinet. And he's like, hey, man, no, don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah.
And it's like, really?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like, I mean, some of the campaigns that they do, it's just
horrible.
Absolutely ridiculous.
It's total bullshit.
I think it gets worse for people when they're already like there's something mentally wrong with them, and then they take the drugs, and it's 1,000 times worse.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, there's
so
yeah, and it wasn't the smear campaigns; it was reality.
Right.
Of like, okay,
for sure.
If you take this, you're gonna, you know what I mean. So I like to be educated, and then
totally
you'd see all the stupid scare tactics.
Right.
Well, the worst though is the fact that a lot of the drugs that are a problem are pharmaceuticals.
right.
And
Big pharma.
oh god, yeah. I mean, that's the biggest problem right there though. Is so you have all of these different drugs like hydrocodone and other opiates, but yet if you just went to opium and even heroin like is lower dosage or lower than most of these opiates. Same thing with cocaine. Cocaine, I mean, it's still actually used quite frequently today, and it's actually still used in Coca-Cola. But then you have marijuana, you have mushrooms, you have all these things that naturally grow. So, but they do different things. I mean, look at elephants. There's that bush or whatever that they eat,
Yes.
and it gets them drunk and stoned.
Oh, really? I don't know
Have you
about
seen those
that.
YouTube videos, Aaron? You gotta check it out. It's pretty funny.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
They're like,
and monkeys too. It's not just the elephants, the monkeys.
yeah.
Well, in nature, I was watching a video of, I think it's dolphins, and they I don't know if it's a blowfish or what. There's something in where they run into it
there's
with
a
their
toxin.
snout. Yeah,
It's
and
a
then they get all
neurotoxin.
messed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they know, so like in nature, I think a lot of things want to alter their reality, but
Oh, everything does.
Yeah.
See, here's the best part. When you were a kid, do you remember spinning around in a circle? Like you would spin around and get all dizzy, and
Yeah.
it would make you feel like whatever.
yeah.
That's actually how children start mind altering, because you're actually messing with your what is the ear?
Their equilibrium.
Yeah, but it's what is it? The ear. It's the equilibrium, but it's the ear something or other, and it's like senses how you are. But because you're going around in a circle, it throws you off.
Yeah.
And that's why you get all dizzy. And that's actually what they think that the reason why kids do that is because it's them experimenting with mind altering states, because for those few seconds, 30 seconds, half a minute or full minute or whatever it might be, you're completely in a different state of mind.
Oh yeah. Plus, when you're a kid, you're like new in the world, exploring things. Like, what can my body do?
Our child does that.
Yeah.
She likes to spin around in circles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and then she does the like.
Yes.
She goes like
The
this,
head
like
shake.
crazy, like the head shake.
Yes.
But she does it like, but then she does the spin, and she does it slow to the point what she can handle.
Yeah.
And so like I'll pick her up and I'll spin her around, and she's just like, "Whoa, this is way too much." But once she starts getting bigger and older, you're going to see her start spinning faster and faster. And yeah, it's essentially that. But I mean, just about every single animal out there probably has something that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, cats have catnip. Monkeys, elephants, people.
Yeah, I gotta definitely check that out. That's
Yes,
hilarious.
seriously.
And that's the whole thing I never understood though, is like, why something natural, what does it matter especially if it has no real bad benefits to it and mostly good benefits? But yet people, I mean, obviously everybody's different in terms, but for somebody else to say, you can't do that because we don't want you to, just doesn't make any sense.
No, I agree. So my whole thing for me when it comes to like mind altering substances or drugs, I'm like, okay, well, don't do heroin. I'm going to die if I do that. Like all these rock stars. And like I just learned. But also because I love like science, to me, everything had an equal and opposite reaction. So if you're high, there's got to be a low, right? And everything, I didn't want to take the risk. Again, I played so many sports. I didn't want to ruin my pristine body. So I just didn't. And once I got into my early 20s, you're in party mode because you're in your early 20s. I'm going out with my friends and getting boldly drunk, and
getting lit.
I wish I had that life. I didn't. I always stayed at home. I was in my books.
Well, you didn't miss
that
anything
stuff.
because I was thinking
Yeah,
today.
but I think you made up for it later.
Later
at
on,
different
yes.
times.
But like, it wasn't like I partied all the time.
Yeah. Well, every Friday. Friday and Saturday. Yep.
No, she still doesn't really, though. I mean,
No,
yeah,
I
the
don't.
occasional glass, but then when we usually go out, sometimes it's you'll go a little hard.
Yeah.
But that's because you just want to let go. And
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
No.
Well, everyone needs to, that's why I'm doing all the adventures that I do is you gotta have some kind of,
All right, so actually brings to a good point because, yeah, you're pretty much straight. So you don't you don't drink, you don't do drugs,
No.
you don't do too much either.
No.
When it comes to it, like I said, the occasional wine, whatever it might be. And then I'll smoke here and there, I'll drink here and there, no big deal. But I don't go hardcore partying like everybody else likes to. So obviously you're here and you like holistic and alternate ways. So are there any things that you recommend maybe that you do that can help achieve maybe like a different state of mind or a different state of being, maybe through meditation or anything else out there?
I know this may sound cheesy, Aaron. But for me, what I found that helps me get into a meditative state or anything else is CBD oil.
Oh, okay.
Because I am what you would call a very anxious person. I'm very sensitive to other people's energies. I take on people's crap and I should not be doing that, but I'm just very empath. I'm an empath. That's what they call them.
Yeah, I get it.
And when I first started taking the CBD, I noticed that everything for me took the edge off. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I felt like a new person because I'm like, wait, what? I'm not having the same reactions I usually do. So I feel like when I'm in the most calmer of states, I can get into meditation that way or concentrate or, with my creative flow, whatever it may be. I feel like I can concentrate so much better with that. And another thing that really, really helps me too is either burning incense. I love smells. So anything that smells that are calming, even oils, like my oils that I use, lavender, the typical, the very typical things always help.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but for me lately, my go-to thing has been CBD.
Okay.
And it's really awesome.
Well, so my first question is how many milligrams of CBD do you take? Like, what's the recommended dose?
Well, they tell you to start off slow to see like where you're at. Like you start out at 5 milligrams, then you up it.
Okay.
Because of how high my anxiety is, I'm at 40 milligrams.
Okay.
Right
well,
now.
that doesn't seem like a lot because I was watching.
To me, it is, but compared to some other people. So.
Well, I was watching a video about CBD where a guy was like, "I'm going to try CBD for the first time, and I'm going to do it for a week and tell you what happened." Mm-hmm. But the doctor that he went to, I think they were recommending like 250 milligrams a day.
Holy crap!
Wow.
Or something like the average person. Takes
That's a bottle a day.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And he said that I think he was doing 100 milligrams or something. And he's like, "Oh, maybe I'm getting the measurements wrong. I'm pretty sure
That's
it's
freaking crazy
That's
expensive then at that point.
Yeah,
like
'cause CBD's
you
not
get like
cheap,
a 250 milliliter
Is it
bottle.
milliliters?
Milligram, 250 milligram, or the 500 milligram. You're looking at on the lower end of something that's decent would be like $30-$40,
Okay.
and then even higher cost.
Right. But I don't use the oil anymore for CBD. I use the capsules because I actually cannot stand the taste of certain things.
Yeah.
So I'm like a taste person too. So
Well, you can get flavored though, so
right.
you can get
but the peppermint's a little too intense. But
Have you tried the unflavored?
No.
Try the unflavored. I have that. I'll let you try some a little later.
Okay. Sounds good.
Well, the reason I was real excited to talk to you is because when I first came here the one day, you asked me, "Are those mala beads that you're wearing?" So
mala beads.
what had happened to me was I was going through a difficult time in my life, and I felt just disoriented with who I was as a person and emotions and things like that. So I was going through school, and I just wasn't doing I wasn't where I thought I should be in my life, according to society.
Right.
I don't know. It was just a bad time in my life as I don't know. I really can't put my finger. There's just a lot going on.
Right.
So I was looking for other kinds of ways to try to heal myself, really. And because there was a lot of stuff that was rattling around in my brain. In life, people don't really tell you that your experiences add up.
Oh, totally.
It's like a plaque in your brain. So if you have good experiences, that's great. But some negative things could really add
Don't
up
forget
in your head.
childhood trauma too. That's a huge one.
Yeah. So I was really looking for some different path in my life, and I started learning different things, and I started learning meditation. And there's a lot of different types of meditation, but I didn't know what was right and what I was doing. So I just kind of patched it together myself.
Right.
So I wanted to talk to you about meditation or about different ways of dealing with trauma. So besides the CBD, which I definitely will look into, do you have a meditation practice that you do?
No.
Okay.
It's just free flowing. In all honesty, I really like the tribal meditation music.
Okay.
So that's what I lean more towards, the Native American drums and anything of that nature. It's so much easier for me to tap in because I'm so connected with nature.
Gotcha. Do you like to get into the rhythm?
Right.
Okay. I got it.
So actually, I have a quick question then for you, because when we went to Vermont, you got hypnotized.
I did.
And
I did.
Yeah. So the one thing that he does is say that, the power that he gives you to keep, he'll take all suggestions off. But the one thing that'll keep is the ability to go back to that state if you really need to, which is a hypnotic state or a meditative state. So since after that, have you done any meditation, or has it been pretty difficult just with a kid?
It's been pretty difficult being a mom with a kid. So it's kind of hard to do that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was just curious if you would be able to get back to that state
I
pretty
could
quick
if
or
I had
not.
time to myself, more than probably 3 hours just doing absolutely nothing, not even around the kid, just doing my own thing in the middle of the woods or something, then I probably could connect very easily.
Well, for me, so I was looking for anything to help get me. I went through a horrible friendship breakup, really. And I just was, again, for me, what was happening to me was everyone else's pain and problems that they were going through in their lives just wore off on me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was absorbing all of these emotions from other people. And when you care about the people in your life and your friends and stuff, you want everyone to be happy and healthy, but people do go through hard times, and then you feel bad for them. And I was just absorbing all of these things. So it just all added up in my head. So I wanted to, I just was looking for anything, and meditation was the one of the tools that you can add to your tool belt.
Right.
So then I started reading up on, I took a lot of psychology in school, but they don't really, I never thought to think your thoughts are just occurring in your brain. And once I realized that, I read it in a book or something, that your thoughts are emerging in your brain, and you can choose how you react to your emotions and your thoughts. If you can realize that you're having a thought, and if someone cuts you off in traffic and you feel that anger of road rage, you can realize that you're having a thought of anger. And if you notice it, then it passes.
Right.
Yeah. But a lot of people are just run by their emotions, and that's where they're,
Yes.
they're making
that.
Yeah. That's
they're
a hot mess.
they're making decisions based on
Right.
emotions, and that's,
Right.
yeah, you gotta kind of. I mean, that's the whole thing, though. Like in the moment as it's happening, but like even if you let just a slight second or something, you feel that emotion really quick, and then all of a sudden you step back and say, "Whoa, wait a minute, what's going on?"
Right.
And it can be completely different and life changing. So yeah, if you don't get that crazy asshole that cuts you off, and you're like, "The hell's going on?" You go,
Right.
Well, where it helped me is like friends that were going through, maybe they were upset because they were going through a breakup, or they weren't, whatever, they weren't happy with their career, or something happened to them. If they had a friend or family member die, I would like absorb all of that emotion, and I would feel for them.
Right.
You know?
Do you know that's an empath?
Yeah.
That's exactly what you
For
are.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not anymore, because what I've been doing is like, okay,
I'm a cold son of a bitch.
well,
Boundaries.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's exactly
Boundaries,
what happened.
yes.
Like you can't. I mean, it's okay to feel those emotions, but then you have to note that it's an emotion,
Right.
and then just keep moving on. So that's why I wanted to talk to you, because it can really help people. You just realize like their thoughts in your brain,
Right.
you know, and you can, if you realize that they're thoughts, then you can separate yourself from the outside world, and it helps you cope with life, really.
Well, not only that, how long have you been meditating?
I got certified. Okay, so this is really, you probably don't know this about me, but
I
I
don't.
got certified as a Reiki teacher
What?
when I was 16 years old.
So what is Reiki? Could you tell me what Reiki
is energy healing. So
Okay.
it's like, you know how your chakras, you know about the chakras,
No,
right?
no.
You don't know what chakras. Oh God, we're gonna
What's
be
a
here all night.
Yeah, that's why you're here.
So there's all these different chakras that you have, but you know what? I'm gonna give you a book because it like takes forever. But anyways, if one of your chakras, like your solar plexus or your third eye, have you ever heard of the third eye?
I know about third eye. Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about third eye then.
All right.
So if your third eye is all out of whack, Reiki helps clear that and get it back in line with all the other chakras.
Okay.
So it's like a free-flowing energy.
So do I stand up to do the Reiki?
No.
How do I do it? What do I do?
There's long distance
Okay.
Reiki, so someone can visualize you in their mind, their
All
third eye, and send you the energy healing through that way, and they can tap into what you're feeling and the whole bit. And then there's actual physical like contact, like they
That's what
scan your
I've seen.
body,
Yeah,
right? They
that's what I've
scan your
seen.
body and stuff
you're
like
like,
that,
"Ooh."
right? You know, a lot of people prefer to lay down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you. You know, whatever
That
whatever
reminds
works.
me of the like when they go like zzz, and they zap you, and you're like, holy crap!
Yeah.
And there's like it's just their fingers.
Right. So I've known a lot about energy for the longest time. Like even as a kid, I would see auras. I would see really weird things. And I always thought that like that was normal, you know, and it's not. It's not normal.
Don't see your halo.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, just that type of stuff.
Gotcha.
For
Okay.
sure.
So what I've been reading about a lot, I was listening to this guided meditation of chakra alignment, which I really like. It's a guy on the YouTubes. Yeah. His name is Michael Seeley, and if everyone is,
I know who that is.
Yeah, I really like him. I think he's Australian. He has an accent. Maybe he's British.
I enjoy listening to him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Not familiar with them.
Yeah. Well, that's how I got into this whole. Because I was going to therapy. I'm like, I probably need therapy.
Listen, everyone needs therapy.
They do.
I don't care what they say. Everyone needs some.
Sure.
Just
Well,
saying.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. You go to get checked up physically, you feel physically fine, but mentally, I mean, there's so much shit that goes on, stress and
Right.
life, and there's so much like change going on. I mean,
Right.
look at from now 20 years ago, how different life was. I mean, just think of like after World War II to the late 60s, what was going, like how fast things have changed. And it screws with people because it's like if you get stuck in this little way just for a little bit of time, you come back to all of a sudden everything's completely different. It's like people in jail. You know, if they're in jail for a long time, they don't know what's going on around them. Then they get out and they're like, "What the hell is this? I don't know what this world is."
Right.
Yeah.
But you also got to remember too, Aaron, everyone's, obviously you hear this 1,000 times from everyone else. Everyone's journey is different. My traumas are different from your traumas. So my ways of doing things may not help you, vice versa.
Right.
You know, so you kind of have to figure out on your own, like, why am I in this, like, why do I feel this way? And you got to cut the cycle. You got to like stop doing it. You know, you got to figure out how to heal that.
Well, I didn't understand that, like, I was like a ping pong ball or like something, like, I was just getting knocked around by life, and I was an emotional person. And if you grow up ever since you're young like that, you don't understand. It was just like I met a dude who didn't like music and had never been to a concert. It was just like, no, I watch sports. I'm like, you've heard music, right? But I realized that for me, a song used to take me on an emotional journey.
Right.
And ever since I've been like doing this meditation stuff, the volume in my head has been turned down.
Good.
And the emotional journey, which it takes away from music for me now, like I can't really go on that emotional journey that I used to go to in my head, but it's good because also now the people in my life and events and things that happen in the world are also not, you know, I really was like a pinball, like bing, 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 knocked around by all these emotions. So I was looking for anything that I could to try to like be a normal functioning adult.
But who's normal?
Well, yeah. So that's the whole thing. Like, I found a therapist that I really liked and had qualifications and skills. And I've talked to other people that were like, oh, I can't do therapy. My therapist just listened to me and then mocked me, and I didn't like that. I'm like, well, get a different one.
Well, get a different person, right?
You got to find one that works for you and it can be great. And that was helpful.
They also say, though, that, like, it takes a while to find the right therapist. Like,
yes, it's not gonna happen overnight.
It's the same thing with the journey,
for
sure. Of it, for sure.
Well, the one that because I again took a lot of psychology courses, and I met people who are psychologists or psychologists or therapists or psychiatrists, and I just needed some kind of talk therapy. Right. It wasn't anything. I wasn't going to like a psychiatrist who prescribe medicine.
Right.
That's for mental disorders. I just really needed to talk it out with somebody.
No, I get it. You need to. Yeah. Everyone does. Yeah.
And I started doing EMDR therapy, which is like I have to look up what it was. And that helped me get over what you said, the early childhood traumas.
Right.
So then a friend of mine, I was still having trouble with this relationship of losing friends and things. And you know, your friends, people in your life were social creatures. You were attached to things. So I was having a real hard time. And
emotional.
Yeah. Emotional and attachment. So a friend of mine suggested these guided meditations on YouTube, and I started listening to them. And that's what led me down the path of meditation, which real meditation. So you can listen to the guided meditation. That's kind of like self-hypnosis to help you get over things. But the meditation I've been learning, I just sit down and I just breathe in and out. And you listen to your breath, and you try to do like 20 minutes of listening to your breath. And then if you realize that you're thinking like, oh, I got to pay the electric bill and I got to do this, then you note in your brain that you're thinking, and then bring yourself back in to listen to your breath.
Well, isn't that your own word or whatever it is to bring you back?
You can do that. There's a lot of different.
I say cancel. So when a thought comes into my head, the first thing I think of is a red X, and I say cancel. That's what I do.
That's why I wanted to talk to you. Yes. Like, what techniques do you use to try to...
Right. And I think of this is really random too, but you know what orbs look like? The little balls of light, whatever? Okay. Yeah. So when I'm in meditation, I just concentrate on that orb ball the entire time. So if
like in your mind?
In my mind.
Okay.
So when a thought or randomness comes in, I say cancel, and I see a big X, like cut, right, and it disappears, and the orb comes right back.
Gotcha. Okay.
So my orb is created within, obviously my mind. It's very sparkly. It's got like fairies in it. It's just, that's like my type of stuff. I love all that stuff, the mystical types of things.
And again, that's what works for her too.
Right.
That's
for me. Right.
So for you, if you're trying to cancel out something, like that's why I said like the Om word, because and each person has their own kind of sound or signal or whatever it might be, because it's supposed to be like a non-emotional attachment to it, where it just like brings you back and centers you to the meditative state of nothing.
Right. Well, so that's what the common misconception that a lot of my friends, I was telling my one friend was going through a real hard time too. And I was like, you should try meditation. It's helping me. And she goes, well, I can't sit there. My brain won't let me sit there and clear my brain. I'm like, well, if you don't have any thoughts in your head, then you're dead. Like your brain
totally
is never going to turn off. Like the
Right.
point of meditation is not to turn off or clear your brain.
Just relax.
Yeah. And it you just brings you back into the present
Right.
because our mental mind is always thinking of either the future or the past.
Or all of it.
Yeah, or all of it once. And that was
Right.
wrong with me.
Or what's going on in the moment.
Yeah, my brain
Right.
was like a spinning gyroscope
Oh my God,
of
you sound
thinking.
just like me.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place.
Yeah, that was what's happening to me.
Amazing.
So, speaking of, because Aaron and I have been talking about this for a little while, that we have to do this, the float tank. First of all, if you don't know what the float tank is, it's supposed to be like this completely meditative state.
I want to do
where
it so
you
bad.
do nothing but just lay there. And it's the only time without like drugs or anything where you can actually like your mind and your brain can just stop. Like it doesn't need to sense anything around, doesn't need to sense your body or anything because you're floating in this tank. So when are we going?
Yeah,
we've been talking about this.
Yeah,
we
let's go.
have to go.
Yeah, this week.
Aaron,
we'll
I
mix
wanted
that
to do it so bad.
Let's go.
Like it's on my list.
up. Yeah,
Okay.
this week.
Only problem is though that they only have 2 tanks at the place. So
Well, you guys can go and experience it together and let me know how it is.
we are, and then we'll go too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to. That's something I definitely want to do.
definitely doing.
But speaking of, what we can do for our coffers out there, just kidding. But if anybody wants to donate to the Aaron and Chris fund for getting our own float tank, that would be pretty cool. So anybody out there who wants to donate, let us know.
Oh, Aaron, how's your hashtag thing going about getting you a date or finding you a woman? What was that hashtag?
Hashtag.
You guys were talking about a hashtag something with Aaron. He went to the bathroom or something like that, and you were saying you need to find Aaron a woman or something.
Yeah, I remember that
was.
episode. Yeah.
And it was hashtag
I don't remember
something.
what that was.
Oh man, this is driving me
No,
crazy.
I'm working on myself, so that's what I've
Yes,
been.
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I've been
Speaking
doing.
of, did you watch the video I posted today on Real Rideshare Stories?
No, I have not.
Oh, you haven't? You haven't yet, did you? Mm-mm. All right, because it's funny because I can give it away now because it's already live on the internet. But yeah, it was where there was a woman who she doesn't want to have like just sex just randomly. And she's like, I just want to have a good man that I can be with and enjoy and have a lot of good sex with, but not like a fuck buddy. And she hadn't had sex in 5 years.
See?
So
You're not alone, Aaron. You're not alone.
Oh, I'm definitely not alone. This is
No,
public
you're not.
information, so I guess I can say it. I was reading an article about Linda Hamilton, for the woman from the Terminator,
Oh.
and she says that since her divorce from James Cameron, she's been celibate for like 15 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
How
I'm
do
like-
you function?
That's what my.
that's
Well, it's funny that it's interesting we're talking about this because I was talking to a friend of mine last night who I hadn't seen in a while, and she has separated from her husband, and she said that they used to have sex like 3 times a week or like on a normal schedule, and that it had been like 8 months. Well, yeah. Well, if you are used to that and then you don't get it, then you go through withdrawal. But for me, like it's been so long, it's not even part of my.
Yeah, you're past that point though where it's like, oh my god, and then all of a sudden you're like, it's like that balloon where you like the cartoon where you're going through it and you're like trying, and then all of a sudden you pop through and it's like, all right, there's no more resistance now.
So
right, and you could care less if you have sex or not at this point.
Just, like,
right,
focusing on other things in my, and everyone we still have hormones, of course.
Well, of course,
Where-
you wouldn't
where
be
we
human
can,
if you
yeah.
didn't.
Speaking,
Aaron.
did you get your test yet?
No.
Okay.
No, I keep forgetting to do that. You know what? I'm gonna write that right in my notepad.
The notepad.
Right in my set the alarm.
Set the alarm.
Yeah, because he was going through some cloudiness and stuff, and I'm like, well, just get checked, like get the blood test.
Well, so apparently we get old. No one told me.
Really?
Yeah, no one told me, so I'm spreading the
I thought I
word.
was 26.
Yeah.
I still am.
Apparently, yeah, the human body kind of it will get slower and break down. So what I started to do because I'm on this new path is I started to eat differently.
Right.
and I took a nutrition class, which
Good for you.
yeah, and I
That's awesome.
I changed my diet.
Good.
And I started to be more conscious about getting older. And then I quit vaping.
Good for
And
you.
The vaping.
That's fantastic.
Well, that's what I tell everyone. It's the stupidest thing. I sit
I
down,
know.
I close my eyes, I breathe in and out, and every time I have thought stories in my head, I'm like, I'm thinking. And I bring myself back to my awareness in public. And I woke up one day, I was like, why do I vape? I don't need to vape. Like, this is so stupid. I had the worst addiction to nicotine. So if meditation can help you stop smoking, I'm a huge advocate of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I will.
Well, not only. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I will admit to this. I've only tried vape once, and it was when I was like 21, and I had a Halloween party at my house. And one of my really good close friends, she has an addiction to it and she needs to stop. Like, it's really bad. Like, she cannot go anywhere without this thing. Like,
Yeah,
it's
that's
attached to her at the hip.
That's me.
Anyways,
That's a lot of people, yeah.
so I've tried it. Like, it was like a blueberry flavor or whatever it was. I tried it once and I was so grossed out by it. I was like, fuck this. I'm not doing it ever again. So that was the only time I really tried like a vape.
Yeah,
type
well,
of
the
thing.
cigarettes are 10 times worse than vaping, but vaping is still
It's not great.
No,
Yeah,
it's not
what
good.
about all the vaping illnesses? And
Well, you know,
now
they
even
found
the
out why.
death-related
so
illnesses now.
it's the same problem that we have with drugs, is that if you're buying chemicals off the street, people are
boy.
tainting the chemicals,
Yep.
and then people are dying from it. And it's the same thing. So they're trying to make the vaping illegal, and it's exactly what we're seeing. Where it's illegal, people are buying their juice off the street, and now people are dying because they got a tainted chemical in their juice. It's the same thing where you said, like, people are going to make their own choices. You can't stop them. So
Right.
just
well, not even that. It's the weed. Essentially, it's the weed.
Yeah.
So it's the THC that people are getting. I don't think it's been anything with tobacco.
No,
products.
it was the THC.
But it's the
vape.
THC, and what's going on is you're having the grow fields in areas that it's legal, like California, that the cartels are going to and doing all this illegal grow ops, and then they're putting chemicals in it, like pesticides, so nothing will touch the weed, so it grows, and then they can ship it out to the rest of the states.
Right.
And that's what the problem is these chemicals that are banned substances in the U.S. that they're bringing over from Mexico into the U.S. to grow, because those pesticides work so damn good, but they're so horrible to the area, to the plants, the animals, everything that's native, but then it stays on that plant.
Right.
So when you get it into an area that is illegal, you're getting it through some weird channel.
Yeah.
And unless you know the source of that, where it's coming from, then you run any risk of a possible issue.
And that's one of the issues with buying pot in an area where it's not legal, is you could get cartel weed that has, you know what I mean? And then, but then
Laced with something else and it kills you.
That's the same thing that happened with the vape. They're buying THC cartridges for their vape off the street because they shut them all down, and someone had a tainted batch full of this stuff. It was the same thing that was happening in the Dominican Republic with the alcohol. They got tainted batches of these, vape cartridges, and people were dying because there's chemical in there it was vitamin E, I think, that someone put in there that you're not supposed to vape. And
boy.
So in Michigan, there's a governor who decided to make vaping illegal because she has teenage kids and she doesn't want the teenage kids to be exposed to vaping.
See, now that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Of course.
It's like you're overstepping.
It's an overreach of power.
It's not just an overreach of power, but you're running on a pure emotion.
Exactly.
Because they're saying there's these vaping related illnesses, but yet nobody cared to mention that it was tainted weed or tainted issues with THC
she's
cartridges.
Been trying to do
versus
this even before this, and of course, when you see the headline, it just says vaping kills. Yeah. Right. But then when you read into, you're like, oh no, street liquid that someone tried to buy THC that was tainted with the vitamin chemical. It's not, but wasn't even using that as a reason to try to limit vape. It's just like, I got teenage kids. We got to keep the vape out of the, Of course, but I got teenage kids. We got to keep the vape out of the teenage kids. Like, yes, we have laws for that, and you're a parent. That's your responsibility as a parent, is to talk to your kids about smoking. But you can't take the right of adults away for vaping, and you'll get exactly what we're seeing happening. It's a black market, and people getting, it's a lesser of two evils.
And not only that, though, it's actually safer, as you said earlier. It's like 10 times worse to smoke cigarettes because of all the crap that's in them. Yep. But if you just did the vape, but the problem with vaping is, though, it's so easy and so accessible. Like with smoking cigarettes, you know how much is in that pack. So you smoke one or two or whatever it might be, and then if with a regular vape pen, you don't really necessarily know what you're smoking. So you could be smoking half a pack a day.
Oh, it's horrible.
And then you go to a vape pen and you're smoking like the equivalent of 3 packs a day.
Well, I can't really compare it to packs of cigarettes because it is apples and oranges. The cigarettes that you smoke are not doing, they're doing 10 times worse damage to your lungs and causing tar in your lungs than the vape. But I compare it to the difference of, let's use coffee for an example. People, I don't know if you've ever drinking coffee.
Oh my God, I'm addicted to coffee.
Okay, so then you understand what addiction to nicotine is. Yeah. Caffeine and nicotine can cause the same type of addiction, where I had an addiction to nicotine. At first I had an addiction to smoking, and I love smoking. But once I got off of the cigarettes and my lungs cleared up because I don't have the tar, that's the benefit of vaping. I could smell things. My food tasted better. I didn't stink.
Right.
It's cheaper, and it's probably subjectively much more healthy than smoking. Now, are there drawbacks? I'm sure there is. We don't know what the long-term effects of vaping are. Yeah. So it's the same thing with cigarettes. It's going to take 50 years of study.
Right.
But it was the lesser of two evils for me, but I was getting more nicotine because you can vape all the time. A cigarette, you get 10 milligrams of nicotine average, and then you're done. And then most people, even a horrible addiction, I would chain smoke, but there was a break. My vape, I could just vape and vape and vape and vape. You don't have to light it. So I was getting a much higher level of nicotine throughout the day. And that was difficult. With nicotine withdrawal, it was pretty bad.
Now, I can't wait until Friday. What's going on Friday?
What's happening Friday?
You know what's happening Friday, right?
Are we going to the float tank?
No. Cards. We haven't played cards in forever. It's been
so
how long has it been since we've played cards?
It's been all summer. It's been at least 6 months.
It's been long. And then the last time we played cards, you weren't there.
Yep.
And this was before you quit smoking.
Yeah.
And you quit vaping.
Yep.
So now there's only one person that vapes, and I don't know if she still vapes or not. Yeah. But when you go there and you're like, I don't vape anymore.
There's no vape.
So
it's going to be epic. Now, have you played this game called Cards Against Humanity?
I love cards.
It might be the best game ever.
It's amazing.
Oh, God, yeah.
My favorite card is the 2 midgets in a bucket.
You don't know. We've made our own cards.
I know, you told me.
That was fun too.
We have a lot of good cards.
Yes, I know. You've told me.
What you can do, you can print out the template off of Cards Against Humanity of just blanks. So what I want to, and it tells you what kind of paper to use and everything, like A10 stock. I want to make, because they give you cards to draw on, but it's a handwritten card. I want to actually type them out and make my own, and it's going to be great.
It's fun when you drink during that game too.
Super fun.
Yeah.
It's amazing though, because when we play, like the conversations that it goes into and leads into is crazy. But are you doing anything Friday night?
I don't think so.
Do you want to
go? This Friday?
Yeah.
It's this Friday?
It's this Friday. This coming Friday. So
this Friday.
5 days away.
Don't miss it.
Because we couldn't do it the other day.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it
I'm
this week.
sure I can have someone watch the child so I can come.
It'll be super fun.
It'll be fun then.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, the thing with me in my life is we're programmed that like you need the biggest house and the fastest car and all the money.
Oh my God, yes.
Right? And that's all well and good, but the most satisfaction and enjoyment that I get out of my entire life is playing Cards Against Humanity with my friends. It's the best thing ever. I love it.
It's a lot of fun for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Having good friends is where it's at in life.
Right.
Nothing.
Isn't it funny how we're raised to like want materialistic things and like you have to have a white picket fence, a big house, the whole shebang, and it's like that's not. It's such an illusion.
It is definitely an illusion.
Oh, for sure. You know what though that I've kind of come across or kind of thought, and it was actually earlier today. It's kind of funny because we've all been thinking we need stuff and we need new things or the latest and greatest and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, because we're getting a house.
Right.
So we're figuring out like decorative styles. And so I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I like modern, I like sleek, I like industrial, I like simple. Like that kind of stuff is nice. I want less. So like that's kind of the funny thing because so many people want things and this and that and have to have the latest and greatest phone and the latest greatest things. And sure, we have some great stuff here, but it's also very nice and simple. Yeah. Right. That's the whole thing. Like I want it to be simple because it's so much easier to, continue being, what's the word I'm looking at? Like just if you have clutter, it clouds your mind, clouds your
so simplicity.
Who you are. So, and simplicity keeps your mind free from that clutter crap. And I can't think of what the terminology of it is, but yeah. So I'm thinking like to the house, I'm like, I just want simple stuff. Like I don't want to see a bunch of shit. I just want it to be simple and easy. Anything that needs to not or isn't used regularly needs to be put away into a place. And then the random times because it's just the decluttering of everything. So, and then I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, how do I want my office set up? So that's really what I'm focusing on in my mind right now, because what I need for the office is a place where I can go and be comfortable doing all the work. So all the editing, all the going through and checking things out, making sure everything's good, creating the videos, creating, the finishing of the podcasts, the uploads, the this, that, and the other thing, then just everything else. And it's like, I want it to be somewhere where I enjoy where I am. I'm not like just bound down where I don't want to be there and don't want to get work done or whatever. And it's like, so to me, I'm like, I'm partially past that, even with like, what's the date today? Today's the 8th.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, like the iPhone event's happening on Tuesday. So the new iPhone that's coming out. So everybody's like, oh my God, I gotta have it. And mine's going to be 2 years old now. And I'm like, last year, I'm like, oh, I'll wait until this year's model. And now I'm like, I don't really care. My phone still works. It works great. Yeah. And they're not really doing that many improvements. My phone still works. What does it matter?
Well, I'm super happy with my phone, and I'm going to be sad if it ever eventually I'm going to have to get a new one. But I know that nothing's going to compare to this one. If it works and it's functional for me, I don't need all the
right.
But I think like in your mind's eye, we're so programmed by other people about what your priorities are supposed to be. That's what I've been trying to really reassess in my life. Like I told Chris this, like I was so attached to music and like that was really important to me in my life. And there was a lot of things and my friends were overly important to me. Like the world problems were overly important to me. Like now I'm just
things that you can't control.
Yeah. And just like thoughts of the future, thoughts of the past and all like, well, if this didn't happen, then this is going to happen. All this stuff. And I was missing out just being in reality.
Well, in the present, right?
Yeah.
And in the present, being present.
Yeah. And really what was happening was when we played cards like that, I'm in the present, laughing, having a good time with my friends. That's an enjoyable moment that now in life, we all should just take time to like smell the flowers, you know?
Yeah. Like, you know who keeps me grounded? My daughter.
Oh, really?
Because, everything's so, with a child, everything's so new. And it's like, it's eye-opening to you in so many different ways. It's always all the new firsts. And it's like, wow, it's such the simple things that matter most.
Well, see, and I'll tell you what happened to me. So when I was 10 years old, that's when my first youngest brother was born. I have 3 brothers. And then when I was 12, my youngest brother was born. So going through high school, when all of a sudden there's like a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Then when I was 16, there's a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. And my parents worked a lot. My mom was sick when I was growing up. And all of a sudden, I always tell a story to my friends. When my friends got the driver's license, I remember I was home and my friends pulled up into my driveway and like, we're going to the beach or somewhere. And they all got their licenses. We're all excited to drive. And I couldn't go anywhere because I was home with my brothers. And I learned so much because I'm 39 now and I have a 27-year-old and a 29-year-old. They're all grown up. But experiencing all of that with them, like I learned so much, even though I'm not a parent. I'm way ahead of the game when it comes to when I got into my 20s and all my friends were starting to have kids, and my early in the late 20s and now in my 30s, they're really having kids. And just watching them freak out about things that I learned when I was a teenager. I'm
Right.
like, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I wasn't a parent, but
that's okay. It doesn't matter.
Taking care of them when you have 2 boys that are fighting with each other, and like, you know, one of them has the red CD player and wants the blue CD player. The other one got the blue one and wants the red one. I learned so much.
That's a simple flip-flop then. If they want one versus the other, you can just be like, okay, here you go.
Yeah, you would think it'd be that simple, but it never is. So what I learned, like, I had to be master of distraction, where if they're like being rambunctious, be like, who wants to go jump on the trampoline and I'll play video games
Diversions.
with you. Yeah, super divergent. And just so much. Like, you wouldn't think that you have to watch a kid. You have to watch them. Like,
you gotta watch every move.
Yeah.
Well, not only that,
look away.
Also the compromise too. It's like, if you want them to do something, you're like, okay, how about we do this before you do that? And it's like, well, you're just leading them into what you want them to do anyway.
You gotta make a deal.
It's so awesome.
There's just so much. Or like, you know, reading bedtime stories, and then you start to think of like, you know, how do you want their future to be? And you don't want anything bad to happen to them. I remember one of my brothers broke his arm while he was at school. I'm like, I should have been there. But you can't bubble proof the world.
No.
You know, so I have a unique experience where people, I was talking to my friends who have kids now that are like 8 and 10 years old. They don't really understand. Like, I've already been there. You know, and I'm starting they just discount me because I don't have my own kids. So for you, it's exciting. Because how old's your daughter?
She's going to be 2 in December.
I wish I could experience like raising a child when I'm not like a teenager that can appreciate like, you know.
Right. It's amazing how like selfish you can be until you have your own children and you're like, holy shit. Like it's such an eye-opening experience.
Your life changes because now you have to deal with this little tiny thing who has no idea what the hell to do.
Right.
And you have to be like, no, yes, you're fine. Okay, no, hell no, God no, get back here. So you got all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, it's the toughest job in the world. You're responsible for shaping the mind of a person.
Oh,
yes.
And then it was never for me, like the fear was not my own. It's someone else, like you send them to school and are they going to learn the right things and who are they going to be friends with? There's just so much.
But you can't protect them from everything. Like you said, you know, they need to be their own individual too. So,
well, what we were talking about last night is bad parenting. So I don't think bad parents realize that they're bad parents. They were talking about friends of ours that their kid is like a brat and they're like, there's no discipline. And, you know, but if you're a rookie parent who doesn't, and it makes perfect sense because both of them are single kids that didn't have any brothers or sisters or kids. So they didn't have the responsibility of having even another brother or sister. Right. So then all of a sudden they have this kid with they're complete rookies. Like they want to be out at the barbecue and they don't realize you got to watch your kid. Like, you know, you teach your kid things.
Right. I feel lucky because my sister and I are very close. Like we hated each other when we were younger. You know, we would always like fight, fist fights, you know, the whole shebang.
Oh, your siblings. You should see, there's a picture of her the day that her sister was brought home from the hospital. There's a picture. So her mom's holding their mom's holding her sister, and Chelsea's standing there next to her with this fucking pissed off look,
it's a great
pure
picture. It's a classic.
devil.
It's a classic. No, but I I love her more than anything. So like as we got older, things shifted and things changed, and like I don't know what I would do without her type of thing. I love her so much.
Oh, for sure. I mean, every siblings fight with each other is what they do.
Right.
Speaking of, does your sister and that boy, did they ever continue talking or no?
No.
Oh.
No. That's a negative.
So they weren't meant to be.
No.
I guess your cousin was wrong.
Yeah, they're too much alike. See, when you're too much alike with someone that you match up with, I feel like there's no chemistry to me. Because I feel like it's just the same. It's boring. You got to have differences.
The only thing is, there's certain differences you need, yes. But there's also a lot of similarities that you need to have too. Because if you're meshing together with like your life, you want to make sure you guys are on the same page on a lot of things.
Very
but
true.
where it doesn't matter is where you can be separated in
Right.
terms of your own individual likes and wants and needs and things like that. But like I say, you still have to have a good core that's similar, or at least meshes well with each other.
Right.
Well, I told Chris the reason I'm single is because I'm waiting for a blonde-haired,
Oh,
blue-eyed
Bloom.
Asian girl.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I want a
Asian. Okay.
They don't exist. That's why it's
I
funny.
know, I
There's no
know.
such thing as a blonde-haired.
It's interesting
blue-eyed
how like
Asian woman.
Heidi Klum
what
Chung.
we're attracted to and we end up with something totally different.
I'm partial to blonde-haired, blue eyes for some reason.
I
don't know why.
So you want to know something really funny?
Oh God. You told him this story.
What?
The cat story.
What cat story?
I mean, the Halloween story.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about in general where it's me just liking blondes in general.
Oh, okay. Because I thought you were going to tell the Halloween story. I'm like, you already said
No,
that
I like...
story.
So I've dated a lot of different people. And I prefer blondes as well, too. Just pretty much like you. Very close. I think it's just the Italian in us.
It must be.
But this one woman I dated, which you know who she is, but she was brunette. She's brunette with crazy curly hair, and I like the long, straight blonde hair, and yet somehow... So if people didn't realize, Chel C and I are dating, and we have a kid.
We have a kid together.
And that's what we're talking about.
Right.
So.
Right.
Oh, man.
Well, the funniest thing for me, I don't know if you remember Mad TV.
Oh my God, I love
Yeah.
Mad
You remember
TV.
Mad TV?
Yes.
I don't watch it too much, though.
Stuart was my favorite.
Oh, Stuart.
Stuart, look what I can do.
I could do it.
Look what I can do.
It's the best thing ever. So there was a skit on there called Lowered Expectations.
Yes. Oh my
Funny.
God. Yes.
Lowered Expectations.
Oh my gosh.
And that's what my friend keeps telling me. He's like, Aaron, you got to lower your expectations. I'm like, lowered expectations.
Isn't
so
that funny though? Like whenever somebody says something like that, your mind just immediately goes back to exactly what you're thinking about. So every time you hear somebody say you got to lower your expectations, you're gonna be thinking lowered expectations.
In my head. Like, Aaron, 39, single, Italian. Blah, blah, blah. You know, it's just so funny.
Did you ever watch what's that show called? Impractical Jokers?
Oh, it's hilarious.
So one of the funniest things is, I think it was the first or second season they did permanent punishment. So at the end of the show they punish the losers.
Yeah.
Well, all three of the four guys lost that round or that episode. So three of them had to get punished. So they all had to get permanent ink tattoos.
Oh, God.
So Sale got Jaden Smith on his outer thigh.
What?
Yes.
What?
Got Jaden Smith, so Will Smith's and Jada Pinkett Smith's son, tattooed on his outer thigh. Murr got it was like a ferret skydiving, and then Q was 38. Lives alone, has two cats, and that was his tattoo with a cat.
Oh,
and he's like,
man.
I'm only gonna be 38 for 2 more months.
Yeah.
So now he's like, I don't know,
probably
43 or
40,
something, and it's the same. Like that's the whole thing. It's still the same thing. So it's
so
like
crazy.
now you gotta like black out the tattoo and put 43 or something.
Laser removal.
Lord.
So you were telling me that you're a fan of the horror movies.
Yes.
Okay, so what's intrigued me is I know a lot of I'm a guy, so I understand why dudes like horror movies. I get it because I'm a guy. But what's always intrigued me.
Don't.
You don't get why they like it.
I don't. I think they're so boring. I fall asleep in them. Like if I ever go to one of the horror movies, I fall asleep. Or if I'm watching, I'm just like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
It's so predictable. It's not even like, to me, it's not entertaining.
Yeah. Well, if you don't like the genre, but I understand why dudes like it. But I always was intrigued by why women, do you like to be scared? Is that what it is?
No, it's actually, you're going to find this answer pretty interesting. But because you know how I like the dark stuff? Remember I told you I've always been drawn to that type of stuff?
Yeah.
So it's like that darkness, it's like a reflection of like what I feel inside sometimes.
Okay, I get it.
And I don't know, there's just something about it. And it's so typical. You know, like I was telling you, every horror story, it's always the same ordeal. Someone, you know, people end up dying, you know, and then of course the person that's being murdered or whatever ends up like dying like 20 times and coming back in another series.
Oh, I see.
So,
you know, I wonder if it's anything like the women who like to date, like, or get married to the people in jail, or like serial killers, because they're
not
like
that crazy.
They're like, no. I wonder if it's like just a primal thing in women. It's like they'll be like, oh, this person can kill me, and it's like, so I'm drawn to it because you have this like this little like edge.
Yeah.
Is anything going to happen? Is not? Am I going to be safe? And I don't know.
Right.
I think it's just one of those weird primal instinct
For me,
things
it's
that
not,
kind of.
It's not the scary stuff though. Like I see past it. It's weird. It's like it's a different feeling for me. It's more of a creative way of looking at things.
I get it. That makes sense.
Right.
I was always intrigued. I'm like, because for me, I just in life, I don't want to be involved in violence.
Right.
I don't.
Of course.
In fact, it's really interesting. I was watching Conor McGregor the other day fight some Khabib guy. His name is at the UFC. And since Conor McGregor is like the
versus
first Khabib, blah 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 blah, and I just happened to watch it because I don't even know why, because I've never paid attention to the UFC. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch this. I'm just like, I'm watching dudes punch each other in the face. Like, it's ridiculous. So, but it's because of my general outlook as humanity as a whole in society. Like, I'm not putting anyone who wants to work out and beat up people. Like, it's in a whole, like I always imagine if I was an alien that was in a spaceship floating around the earth and I came down and I was watching the humans. And you're like, what? Look at people beat the crap out of each other. But it's more violence. Like, I don't.
But think of it. You can't say humans, because all animals are competitive in nature, including humans. So you'll see, you know, different animals fighting. That's why, like, rams, they ram each other.
Yeah, I could pick out examples of violence.
Same thing.
For sure. Yeah, I could pick out examples.
When they're in, like, the mating season.
Yeah.
They go at it for the female.
Yeah.
You know, they whole pack
so
of it, you know.
If an alien was, like, walking by or stumbled upon our planet, was looking... Would they be much different if it's just a way of life?
No, they would probably view us as an organism like the rest of, like, you're right. Like, oh, but, you know, there's lots of organisms that coexist with each other without, and I mean, I understand competition in nature. I understand rams ram each other. I get it. I could pick up examples of animals that do all sorts of things, but there's plenty of organisms on the planet that aren't. But we're supposed to be like an intelligent, free-thinking species that has logic and reason. So why would we choose to be violent if we don't have to? You know,
well, because you're going to go back still to that primal part of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our brain is still...
I'm not.
Yeah, but our brain still is relatively newly formed compared to your primitive brain, which is much, much older. So your logic and reason can only go so far, because when it comes to fight or flight, your primal brain takes over again and tries to get you out of harm's way or assess the situation and figure it out from there. Yeah. So it always goes back to the fact your primal brain will take over, which is still attached to the animal and the animal lineage that we have.
Yeah, I haven't been in fight or flight mode in a long time. What about you?
I was actually going to bring it back to the horror stuff.
Yeah.
Something popped up in my brain. I think what is why I'm so attracted to that as well is I feel for the villain.
Oh.
Because if you like really strip back the layers of a villain,
Yeah.
there's childhood trauma.
Oh, there's always a reason.
There's childhood trauma. There's a lot of like interesting things creating them to the way they were, like become or whatever. So it's like in a weird way, it's like reality.
So do you subscribe to the idea that your I'm trying to I was trying to think of the right word to explain this the other day. I'd have to look it up again. So your development between 1 and 5, between the ages of 1 and 5. Do you subscribe to that idea? Do you know what I'm talking about? So
no, I don't.
There's a lot
Sorry.
of let me look it up so I don't get.
You're talking about in psychology that pretty much everything you learn, your personality is within the first 5 years of childhood development.
No, it's your emotional intelligence of how you react to certain stimuli is developed between 1 and 5. Mm-hmm. And I mean, of course, human beings, we learn and grow all throughout life, but your hardwiring, like your connections in your brain are formed between 1 and 5, and your inputs then can have lasting effects throughout the rest of your life.
Right.
Unless you become consciously aware of it and mentally try to change that pattern.
Right.
Your patterns are programmed in you between 1 and 5. And there's like been studies and studies. There's a ton of research supporting it. It's a leading theory. It's not the only theory, but it's a leading. So do you think that your personality is developed between 1 and 5?
I would think so, right? Yeah. I think anything is possible.
Yeah. I'm surprised that when you talk about early childhood trauma you've never heard of the 1 to 5 theory.
No.
Well, if you don't take psychology, then you're not going to really, because that's only taught in school or in psychology classes. That's not really taught outside. Like not too many people know that.
Yeah, I'm a huge dork, so I like to
Hey, it's okay.
to read and learn things.
It's okay.
Yeah, my mom was an educator, that's why.
Got it.
So I try to absorb as much as I can. Yeah, the early years. Yeah, so that's my whole learning resources. You're learning resources and things like that. So when you talk about early childhood trauma and events, how do you think that they affect you in life?
A lot of ways. I will speak openly about this since we're being open and honest about this. One of my major childhood traumas is my father. And I have a very broken relationship with my dad. And basically it led into me not trusting men.
Okay.
And
well, first, is he still alive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He lives not in Buffalo and he's got a whole new family.
Okay.
So
now, how long has it been? Do you have any communication with him?
Yes, but it's only once in a blue moon.
Okay.
And it's just a text message usually.
Gotcha. And it's formalities?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, continue what we're saying.
I'm just basically stating like, it just taught me in a sense, like, growing up and seeing how he treated my mother, the whole bit, it made me not trust men. And I've always had a thing against men because I thought all men were like my father. And I've seen that my entire life.
Like Aaron thought all people loved music.
No, I didn't understand someone who didn't listen to music and couldn't relate to it.
Right.
But I realize that everyone is experiencing what you said, different stages of different journey.
And it kills me because this is nothing against my dad's side of the family, but they think he's like the golden boy and he can do no wrong. But the reality is they don't know what it's like behind closed doors with him. And it's a total different story.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I feel like the universe keeps doing this to you. Like when you have these childhood traumas, it keeps bringing other people into your life that are very similar to your father, whoever, whatever the trauma is from, until you figure out how to heal yourself from it.
Right.
And it breaks that cycle and you'll stop attracting those people.
That's exactly what happens. And it makes perfect sense. So if you're born and then you're looking to the people around you for cues to develop and how you're supposed to act or react.
Right.
And even by seeing that stimulus, you could view that person and say, well, I would never do that. Or subconsciously you absorb that behavior and you repeat that behavior. Either way, you're still exposed to that person.
Right.
So when you're an adult, those people, they're part of your development. And it makes perfect sense. So your environment and your upbringing has a huge support. Of course, you're going to look for those type of people. And it's
because it's what you're used to. And it's a terrible cycle.
Yep.
So there have been people in my life besides my father who I've attracted that had very similar traits to what my father has. And it's like, what the hell am I doing? So it's like, I cut out a lot of those people of my life. I don't talk to my dad's side at all. A lot of those people are the same way. And I don't know, just basically, my dad, I hate like talking about this, but it feels good to therapy. It's like therapy to talk about this, but it's like, he never saw me. He never understood me. He didn't get me. And that made me grow up feeling like I was never heard.
And that makes me sad because as a parent, like you're supposed to love and accept your child
and he could never do
unconditionally.
that. He never understood me.
Though the fact, like how you said earlier, that like with your friends who were bad parents that didn't realize they were bad parents because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do or didn't realize, like, you have a child, so your life changes. You have to adjust and adapt to that now, instead of just thinking, oh, there's somebody else here, they'll take care of it, I'll continue doing my life the way it is. So it's like, it's also that disconnect there because he's having that issue where he's not paying attention to the fact that it's more than just a one person job.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And another thing too about him is he doesn't know how to have a heart-to-heart conversation with someone. He's so emotionally removed. And I think that's a big issue because I'm a very sensitive soul. As you probably know by now, I'm very, I feel for people. I'm very sensitive in that sense.
Yep.
So it was just so frustrating growing up and feeling like I didn't belong with anything because he'd never understood me, and it'd be so terrible all the time, So once, I got older, I made the decision to not talk with him as much, and it felt good because in a lot of ways he's extremely toxic.
Yeah. Well,
he's extremely toxic.
For sure.
So that's why I dropped the whole side of that family. Like, don't get me wrong, there'll always be like my family, but cut out the people that don't make you feel good.
Oh yeah, for sure. You don't need to have
I don't need
that's
that
the whole
crap.
thing. I mean, family is given, but friends are choice. And the thing is, though, like you have the ability to cut out toxic people, whether it's family or friends.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter who you just. And that's the same thing. Like there were family members of mine that were toxic, and I don't talk to them. And I don't care because. I'm better off. And it's the same thing.
And as soon as I cut him off, Aaron, literally my life shifted. Everything changed for me. My anxiety around my dad just like went bye-bye. Yeah. But there are still things that still need to be healed.
Oh,
and I'm still trying to figure out, like for myself, how to move past this. And it's getting a lot better than what it used to be.
Right. Well, for me, this is probably one of the reasons why I'm eternally single, and I've really been thinking about this.
For you, it's more recent too.
With what?
Isn't it?
With
with the things that you found out and like let go with your dad.
Right.
It's been very recent.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Well, so for me, my mom got sick when I was 10, and she died when I was 21, and. That's my whole entire teenage years,
Right. That's a very sensitive time.
Being a teenager is horrible in the first place. And then when you have the drama that was going on in my house, in my life, when you're a teenager, it's just crazy. But, her being sick, and I think that always having to like attend to her needs and be conscious of like she's sick and this and that. First of all, when you watch someone die, it gives you and you're a teenager watching someone die, and even adults watching people die can't handle it. And then on top of that, I was a teenager. Then she actually died when I was 21. I have a very skewed view of what's important in life because of that. And also just I didn't.
What do you mean skewed though?
So like to me, friends were more valuable than anything. Like people go through life and they're like, I got to make a lot of money and I'm going to have, I'm really excited to get this new Apple Watch. I can't wait to get my new Apple Watch and I'm excited. And oh, my hair, I got to look good in my hair. For me, like people not struggling in life and like having a good time with my friends and being there for them and have relationships were much more important. They were so valuable because I realized like we're all only on this planet one time spinning around and eventually we're all going to be dead. So most people until later in life, at least I hope, go through life, at least in my general area where I live in my environment, they're going through their lives where I get up, I go to work or I go to school and we're going to my family and they all have problems, but they don't, it's not conscious in their brain that we're all going to die like someday. And I think that made my whole life skewed differently. Like I just viewed life way different than I know a lot of my other people who were like, oh, I got to work really hard at school. I'm going to get a career and all this stuff. And for me, I'm like, let's laugh and have a good time, like while we can.
Oh no, I hear you there.
Yeah.
Like, because my dad died when I was 13.
I didn't know
and that was much more sudden.
Yeah,
like it was a very unexpected thing. And so when you grow up without a parent, or like with you, where they were sick for a good chunk of time, and then they passed away early compared to most parents. It changes you as a child and a kid, and then somebody who's growing up in the world, becoming an adult. You have that viewpoint where death is more imminent, or death is a part of being, when most people may experience death, but not necessarily close death.
Right.
Like somebody who's a parent or a loved one, like a brother, sister, somebody who's really close. It's going to be a lot different. So you have death on the mind much differently.
Yep.
And it makes you live your life differently than somebody who still has their parents or has people close, which is most people.
Yep.
Again, most people have thought of or have had death in their life in some way, shape, or form, but you don't know how it is until somebody very, very close to you just leaves this world, and you
and especially at that age too, like you're a developing young mind, and then you're exposed to this reality. It's a reality. Well, I think, and also for me, I always had to be aware of like, well, because she had breast cancer, and then like the whole thing went eventually. So like there was chemotherapy involved and all this stuff, and like you have to be conscious. Like we can't play music when you're a teenager because it's just sick with this, and it just had to be much more attentive than when you're a teenager. Everything's about you, and everyone's supposed to be there for you, like So I think that negatively affected my relationships, where I was much more of like a nice person than these dudes who are like in their early 20s that are just like, ugh. But I think women are attracted to that. It's just a fact of reality. They're attracted to like, powerful the leaders, I think. And I was just much more attentive and sensitive, and it's negatively affected my relationships for sure. They're like, he's just too nice.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to know something
nice.
interesting?
Yeah.
My dad was very power hungry, very money oriented, very narcissist. So in my eyes, what you're saying is not necessarily true, because I actually find people with a lot of money, all that stuff, like I'm so unattracted to those types of people.
Yeah, but that's just money.
Yeah.
And that's certain things, but again, primally, you're going to be looking for somebody who can provide or who can hunt. Yeah. So you're going to be looking for somebody who has more assertive, more power, not necessarily in conjunction with what your dad is.
Right.
But you're still like, it's just a primal thing because women want to make sure that they're taken care of. Yeah. They're
I understand
going to be okay.
Or like domineering, maybe.
Oh, women love.
They
being
love
dominated.
Domineering. Yeah.
Women love. Now, what about you? Like, do you like? I mean, I should know this, but more dominated.
Yeah, I'm more submissive.
Yeah.
That's just naturally how I am.
So that's the funny thing, because the video that I'm going to be putting out later this week that I was telling you about with those women, you've seen the first one. I think you've seen it, where it was like the two girls were hitting on me and try to get me to go back to their place.
Oh yes, I saw that one.
That was like 6 months ago or something. But then something happened just last week where it was pretty much the exact same thing. And they were saying, "Oh yeah, I like being submissive. You're being dominant." And like she was hitting on me, like she was like, I would like to think that when I get out of this ride that you would like to fuck me. And I'm just like, oh my God. And it was hilarious. I'll show you I'll actually show you the video because I have it on this computer. So if you want to see what it's like, we'll do it right after. But it's freaking like hilarious, because when you drive for Uber and Lyft, you really understand people so much differently, because one of the things is that you're like a fly on the wall into their life, and there's no filter for a lot of people. Like they just get in your car and they're going on about their life like it's nothing. And there's zero filter. And that's one of the craziest things, because every other thing I can possibly think of, you have some sort of wall up in whatever you're doing, whether that's even going out to the bar to have fun with friends, you still have some sort of wall up. But when you are in an Uber or Lyft and you're with a friend or something, there's nothing. There's no like boundary between driver and passenger when it comes to that mentality. Right. So like the conversations that I hear and listen to and I'm part of, it's like, holy freaking shit, people.
Well, that's why I think everyone needs therapy, because they're using you as the therapist.
Well, no. I'm not just saying. I'm saying like when there's multiple people in the car. So like when there's the one that's going to be up later this week, which when this podcast goes live, it'll be long up already. But it's, there was two women in the car. The one that happened a couple of months ago too, there was two women. The one that I just posted today that I was referred to earlier in the podcast, that was 3 women. You just hear the crazy stuff. So like actually in the one that I posted today, they were talking about a story that said, how the one girl convinced her boyfriend that she was the first that he was the first person she gave a blowjob to. Yeah. And he believed her. Okay. And it's like, what?
Yeah, okay. Hey. To be honest with you, so my job, which will be undisclosed, but my job, I talk to not so much a lot of people anymore, but I used to talk to all sorts of people. And now, so you cannot believe what people tell me. I'm just like, okay, I don't know you. I'm never going to meet you.
But again, not giving away what your job is in any way. Yeah. Your job is predisposed towards that. It's skewed towards that type of information to begin with.
No. I mean, you're talking to a stranger. And the things that people tell me, they're like, okay.
Dude, I get it. I did hair for 7 years. Yeah, I was a therapist in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like stuff you do not want to know.
Yeah, like, okay.
Like, I don't need to know that you're cheating on your wife with so-and-so and whatever.
Yeah, people are crazy out there.
Yeah, people are nuts.
So what we're talking about early childhood trauma and development and relationship. Oh, yeah, that's what I was saying. So, yeah, nobody teaches us any kind of like guidance of how to navigate yourself or life. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of knowledge out there, but nobody's teaching you the right things. Like I just never. God, no. Yeah, it's crazy. So that's what
Are you talking about for school or
just in life in general, like emotional intelligence?
Well, that's because there's certain fads, and mental illness or mental strengthening or just therapy in general is not a mental fad, or is not a fad. It's something that's, looked down upon. So if you need help for something, then you should if you, I'm sorry, if you need help for something, that's a problem, that's an issue. But yet, is it really? I mean, and I think more so today, people are starting to turn around and realize that no, that's not necessarily the case. I think most people are kind of like understanding now that mental capabilities and working through things and kind of figuring stuff out is actually much better and more beneficial, because there's so many things that are going on just in the realm of a day-to-day or a year-to-year like things going on just in general.
What happened for me, this is what happened. Growing up playing hockey, it's an intense sport, and I would argue that you could probably hit someone in hockey even worse than in football, because you can ice skate and you can get going pretty fast.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and then you're bashing someone into a wall.
Or you can hit someone with the ice skate, the jugular.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. So that's one of what my trauma was. So I played this sport where I'm like getting bashed around, and you always got to be like aware that, of where your body positioning is. You got to be aware that someone is going to come and try to hit you. And you kind of have to have like an eighth sense, because you already have 17 other senses, but you have to have this a mental awareness of where everyone else is in your mind. You have to be aware that someone could come and hit you. But you have to position your body to where you can absorb that hit and not get completely devastated or break your arm or something. So going through my whole entire life with that, and then as a young adult, when you're out at bars and you're around toxic masculinity, there's a lot of young, angry dudes.
Yeah, there are.
So just being in an environment where there's the potential of violence, and I've been in fights, I've been in, a lot of stuff. And up until I was about 25 or 26 years old, there's a lot of violence in my life. So then once I got into my 30s, it like all added up, and it all like snapped in my head one day. And even in my 20s, what I was having a problem with is if I would be out in public with my friends who would like to drink, one of my friends was like super friendly when he was drunk. He'd get a couple beers and I'm like, I love you, man. But the action of him moving his arm towards me to put his arm around me, I thought someone was going to hit me, and it's subconscious. So for a split second, I would get in like a fight mode where I'd be like ready to fight back and have to hit somebody or something. And then I'd instantly have to override, like, okay, he's putting his arm around, he's not trying to hit me. But just this mental shock and I couldn't be like, have people like hugging me. It was like trauma in my head. And it kept getting worse and worse until I had a really horrible view of life in general. I thought everyone was violent and the world is violent. And I was just in like a really bad, in my early 30s, to where like I thought everyone was just out to hurt people, So I didn't understand that I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I thought that people who come back from the army were like getting bombs blown up by them or watching their buddies get their arms blown off or something. That's just post-traumatic stress. I thought it was just for army people.
No, it's not.
No, it definitely is not. If you're repeatedly hit in any kind of way, it all add up. And also, like, I got cut by an ice skate when I was a kid. I was in 4th grade. And that's why I have this huge scar. So it's all added up. I just been through so much in my life.
I hear you.
So I was in like a negative view on life. So that's when I started going to a therapist. So I was like, look, do you treat people who have like, what do you do if someone comes back from a war zone and they have PTSD? Like, can you, so I started doing this EDMR therapy, which is it's eye memorization response. I have to look it up.
Now, you said that there was a lot of different things, like trauma that was going on.
So much.
And you just thought that everybody was like violent and stuff. Was there anything that you were doing that would like magnify that thought or like echo that thought? Was it something like maybe in the news that you watched or anything that would kind of
For sure.
Okay, like you want to go in a little specific of that?
Yeah, so I got really involved in like watching world events and stuff. Mm-hmm. And the world is a violent place, But also our news streams, of course, nobody's going to report all the good stuff that's happening in the world. They report negativity.
Right.
So you all absorb all of that.
Right.
And then just in my local life, people just go through things. People get in car accidents. People die from overdoses. People get sick and die from diseases. There's a lot of stuff. And I was like, just going through so much in life, and nobody teaches you how to like navigate. And if traumatic things happen to you, they don't teach you how to try to deal with it or overcome it in an intelligent fashion. And for me, because my parent was an educator, I like to learn things. I knew that I needed to seek some kind of professional education, who to me, it's just same thing as a mechanic. Like they have a specific set of skills. So I needed to go to someone with knowledge of how to help me. But in our society, it is embarrassing to say, oh, my brain isn't functioning the way that it should. I need to go help get a tune-up. Like it's for men, especially, I think it's embarrassing to not be the toughest, strongest, most functioning person. But it doesn't matter to me. So I want to spread the word. Like if you're having some kind of emotional turmoil in your life, go get help.
Right.
There's nothing,
I have a special set of skills.
Yeah, that's what I did.
I will find you.
Did you, back to your mom, I'm just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Did you grieve her death or did you suppress it for years?
No, 100% suppression. And I still haven't dealt with
Are you?
Right.
Oh, yeah, I was just about to say, are you still suppressing it, or have you started going through it, or no?
When I was in my early 20s, I watched this movie called Man in the Moon.
Okay.
It has Jim Carrey. It's about, what was his name from Saturday Night Live? Andy Kaufman.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yes,
so
yes,
it's about Andy Kaufman. Jim Carrey plays Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman dies from cancer. And watching that movie was the first time I really let myself emotionally feel for what I went through with my parent, because I was... It's a crazy thing. My mom died in August of 2001. And then September 11th happened. So that part of my life was just extreme. And this sounds really messed up to say, but after she died, I was like, okay, the past 10 years of my life were insane. I watched, chemotherapy, bone marrow transplant, then death. And like, okay, now I can focus on me. So I'm in a new state. I'm starting a new life for myself. And then I was in Pennsylvania, and then this plane crashed about 20 or 30 miles away from where I was living. And that was on 9/11. So a whole new trauma starts, where it was just
Do you see the pattern?
No, is there a pattern?
There is a pattern.
What happened?
Because you're telling me, that's why I asked you about...
Crash.
No, I'm just saying, because the fact that he suppressed his feelings about his mother, usually when that happens, the universe tends to be like, okay, I'm going to one-up it.
Oh, that makes perfect
because
sense.
then it's like, okay, I'm going to keep bringing you things that are traumatizing until you finally feel what you need to feel.
Well, that's so...
'Cause it builds and it builds and it builds, and then it explodes, and then it's a hot mess.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened. And back then, I'm in my early 20s, and I believed in myself. I'm like, I don't need anybody. I could do all this on my own, and going to keep moving on. And we're taught to just move on. Especially for me,
terrible.
Well, playing hockey, you get hit in the ankle with the puck, that hurts. But we'll suck it up and keep moving on. It's
so fucked up.
Yeah, I was programmed to take so much trauma and damage.
How fucked up is that?
So messed up. You're supposed to just take...
But that's not just you. That's anybody who plays sport. They're supposed to.
It's our society.
Right.
Men in society, we're supposed to just be tough. Don't cry. Take it. Man up. And that's bullshit. It's 100% bullshit.
Oh my God, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so... And now I'm in my mid-30s, the late 30s, where I'm like, wait... This whole programming is fucked up. I'm not tough because I could take a punch in the face. That's not tough. I'm not.
I feel like once you make peace with, your early childhood stuff that you've been through, I feel like
demons.
Everything will shift for you.
Well, it does. So what I did was I went to therapy.
Right.
And I'm like, look, the first 25 years of my life, I was taught that I'm supposed to be extremely tough. I'm supposed to take a beating and just take a licking and keep on ticking. After that, I smartened up. I'm stupid. I'm not going to allow people to do this to me anymore. But then once I got into my 30s, like, okay, now it's time to repair the trauma.
Right.
So I went and I did what is called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So you start out just thinking of a normal event and you bring it in your mind, and all they do, you just follow this thing back and forth with your eyes. But the theory is that by thinking of the mental imagery and moving the eyes, you're reprogramming the left and right sides of your brain to react. So it doesn't take the memory away, but it reprograms the sensitization to it. So you start out with normal memory.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe in any of this stuff. Like, I'm a science guy. Like, prove it to me, right? It's like, show me evidence that this, but at this point I was willing to try anything, and it actually did work. So like,
interesting, huh?
Yeah, but the place that I was going to closed down before I got to like complete my therapy. So I only started with the early childhood traumas. You start right at the beginning. So I didn't get to work up to the mom.
Have you
issues.
Have you looked other places to
I'm
see?
going soon. Yeah.
You
Yeah,
should.
I was just gonna say, did you try like Dent or something?
Oh, I'll find
might-
someone. Yeah, I'm pretty resourceful. I got caught up in other things.
It's amazing what the brain can do. Like, you can totally rewire everything.
Right.
It's incredible.
Well, one of the big things too is the shortcuts that you create. Like, every time something happens, or like a new anything, whatever it might be, you start creating new branches in your brain, and then new pathways going in your brain. And then if you continue doing that, it creates the shortcut.
Yeah.
So like, you might think, maybe let's say like an ex-girlfriend, you might just might come to you naturally. And then once you like end that, then it's like, okay, now you rework that, and you have to like reprogram or retrain. It's all about changing the pathways in your brain. And that's the same thing with like anything. So like, you know, if you're feeling lazy and you want to get a little bit more like work done or anything like that, and you want to go, you know, just in kind of be on the move, like an object at rest stays at rest, or an object in motion goes in motion. Well, there's some way that you have to transition from that. So if you want to be somebody who's restful, goes into somebody who is now active, you have to change your pathways and do everything, but you have to continue to do it, because it takes time for the brain to do that and shortcut itself.
It's definitely repetition for sure.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, that's what I was working on. I was working on like being out and trying to realize that not people who move towards me are not trying to hit me. Like, you know, if I'm out at a bar
adding
somewhere,
on to the cluster mess of what you're feeling.
Yeah. So that was my first wanted to at least be able to like, so I met a couple people that are positive and outgoing and changed my whole life. And even as a guy would like try to hug me goodbye, but just that motion of coming towards me, like I was like, you know, like, so I had to work on trying not to have that process.
Did you feel like defensive, like when your mom was going through all the treatments and stuff? Did you feel like you were constantly like not able to like feel like you just, what am I trying to say here? Like, it's making sense in my brain right now, but it's not coming out the right way.
Well, I think I'm following a lot. Well, see, the problem was I was a teenager and everything was about me, of course. And like, I did what I thought I was supposed to do, and I cared, of course, but it didn't register emotionally because I don't have the emotional depth as a teenager that you would have when you're older. So I kind of just kept moving on with life, and that's what happened. Was eventually when I got into my 30s, I would be driving down the street, and then all of a sudden there'd be like an image of her when she had no hair and was like real sick.
Oh, I got chills.
Yeah, and that's what the problem was. I'd start getting in my head, like just driving, like what is going on?
So it's like, you know, you didn't treat it right then and there. So it's like, again, it's like suppressing, and then it's finally blowing up.
Because once things settled down in my life to be able to actually all this stuff started coming up. So I was initially working on like the violence because of and then all the mom issues came up. So like, but what you were talking about, your orb that you imagine, so what's amazing about that is the therapist that I went to said, okay, whenever you're having like negative emotions, and I kept telling him like, look, I'm in school right now. I'm trying to better myself, and I don't need to be sitting in math class and have this horrible image in my head when I'm supposed to be, learning algebra. So what do I do to get this? Like, and she's like, okay, well, imagine a container, and you imagine like any kind of container. I'm like, okay, my container is a metal container. And she's like, well, what color is it? I'm like, it's a red container. It's like, your container needs to have a lid. So I have a red metal container. It's circular and it has a red metal lid. I don't know why I envisioned that, but that's what it is. And every time you have a negative thought, then you envision your negative thoughts going into the container and then you put the lid on it.
Right.
Right. And so those kind of techniques was what I was working through to get all these things. And that's what led me on the path to like really start to explore from a non-scientific and non-psychological standpoint of the brain. And then you start learning different philosophies.
Yeah. Now, the only question though that I have is when they say vision that container and put it in there and close the lid, isn't that sounds to me almost like a form of suppression?
It is.
So
it definitely is.
So don't feel at all. That's what she's saying.
No.
Don't feel at all.
No. I mean, I get that, but what I'm saying is it's like a form of suppression, but it's like you got to deal with that at some point.
You do.
So the question is, you put it in there and then you're like, all right, I'm going to shuffle that away.
Right.
So
that's
then we're going to come back and deal with it.
Yes. So that's where the second part of it is. So like it's a technique to help you if you're out, like, cause I was in school at the time and I'd be sitting there like in class and like, economics, and I got to learn about economics, and then I'd have this vision in my head and it would just pop in my head. And it's not a memory that I want to remember of my mother in the first place.
Yeah.
The good one of her that I have that I remember is when I was about 10 years old. She was sitting by a pond and this gigantic monarch butterfly landed on her toe. And I remember like her just looking down at it and thinking it was so cool. And she was happy and healthy, and that was the memory that I remember of her that is good. But then this horrible memory pops in my head every once in a while. It didn't come up in my...
That's not healed. That's why,
exactly.
Right.
So once the drama of my 20s and went away and I finally had time to settle down and really start analyzing my life and like who I am and where I want to go, well then that's when it all comes up. So the technique of like imagining the it's just an emergency, so the technique so that you can get back into what you're doing and function in society without having flashbacks. So then what you do in therapy is for the EMDR that I was doing is then you start bringing up the horrible traumas. You start out with normal thoughts and you think of normal things like, how do you feel right now? And then you watch this thing go back and forth. It's the woman who, there's a bunch of different techniques to this that you can do. But for me, it was like one of those.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
It's like an end of an antenna for a radio. And she would hold it and just move it back and forth. And you think of normal thoughts. And then you watch it and you go, how do you feel right now? I'm like, okay. And you get a little scale from 1 to 10 about how your experience was. Then
20.
Yeah. Like, oh, it was okay. Well, I didn't feel anything. Like, so then you start listing your most traumatic experiences starting from the earliest thought that you could remember. Like, what's the first trauma that you remember? And you start out with a mild trauma. For me, it was falling out of my bunk bed and smashing my face on this grate in my bedroom and like getting a bloody nose. But I was a kid, and I remember going into my room, my parents were like, hey, bash my nose open. So then that's obviously was traumatic because I remember it from when I was a kid. So then you think of that memory and then they do the pre-program.
Oh man.
Right. But you build your way up.
Right.
And I only got to getting bit in the face when I was a kid. I got bit by a dog.
Yeah, dude, you're like...
He's got all sorts of craziness going on.
Lots of trauma. Well, watch your kid.
Well, yeah.
Watch your kid. Make sure you're nowhere farther than 3 feet away from your child at all times.
See, no, here's the problem with when you say no more than 3 feet away is the fact that now you're bubbling the world around them.
Well, you can't...
when you still have to allow them certain independence and be able to go beyond that.
They need to fall down and hurt themselves to realize that if I fall, I'm going to hurt myself.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it, but there's a lot of things that you could do to minimize the trauma. You can't bubble you can't bubble the world. They're going to be out there.
Right.
My brother fell and broke his arm.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah, another little small like trauma of mine. I used to have night terrors as a child.
Really?
My mother would tell me I would come in the room, like not like sleepwalking, but I would, somehow manage to get into her room when I was little, and my eyes would be like glued shut.
Really?
And I'd be like screaming, just bloody murder, just screaming. And this happened for a very long time in my childhood. I don't even remember what the nightmares were about, but it was these night terrors, and it felt so real to me.
They're so real.
It's freaky.
Well, wait, is it that night? Is that actually night terrors? Because I thought that was, I thought a night terror was more like when you're on the verge of waking up and you can't wake up, and you feel like this shadow creature.
It's when you're paralyzed. There's a different word for it, but that's not what I'm talking about.
I thought that's what night terrors actually are.
No.
Okay.
No, I think,
No.
Yeah, night terrors is like
They're different.
horrible, intense dreams that you think you're gonna die or someone's
And
gonna
it feels
attack
real,
you.
like
Yeah.
So
real
then
life.
but then what's the thing
stuff.
that's that
Sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
That's
Is
what.
it?
Yes, that's called
You
sleep.
sure?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm not. I know what a night terror is. I've experienced.
No, I was just
like,
I was just
yeah.
curious.
So it's sleep paralysis, which I've had before too, and that's freaky shit. But, anyways, I would have these night terrors as a kid, and then after that point, when it like subsided, I would have a reoccurring trauma dream that had nothing to do with like my life right now.
Where does it come from? Like, did you ever
I
figure
have
out what
no
was
idea.
causing it?
And I always joked around saying it was like a past life of mine because it happened. The dream would start the very same and end the very same. Same every little detail of every little thing. It was so freaky.
Well, your mind is so powerful, and that's
It
what
is.
makes me sad because I think of how intelligent my brain worked when I was younger. And then I've been through a lot of trauma, and I know that I'm
Right.
not as sharp as I used to be.
It's all clouded in there right now.
It is, yeah. And you get older, you get older, and the light bulb starts getting a little bit dimmer and dimmer, especially. But I remember like being a teenager, how vivid and how awesome my brain worked. I wish I could get
Right.
that back, but it's crazy. I remember the same thing. Like I would sleepwalk.
My sister sleeps.
Yeah.
She sleepwalks.
And I remember
Sorry, Lindsay.
it's so weird that I remember doing this
Sometimes.
because I played sports. I remember thinking that I had to go to the base. I wanted to go to the baseball diamond. I sleepwalked downstairs thinking that I'm getting ready for my baseball
Oh
game.
my gosh.
And then my dad, who's still awake, was like, "You're sleepwalking." Like, okay,
Go
go
back
back
to
to bed.
bed.
But I remember it in my head thinking that like I gotta go meet all the
Yeah.
guys. We're going to play baseball.
My sister had a fetish when she was sleepwalking. She's going to kill me if she hears this. I'm so sorry. But she'd be obsessed with doorknobs, trying to open up doorknobs. And she'd be like shaking them, like trying to get them open and like all this weird stuff. And it's like, how did you not fall down the stairs? Like,
Yeah.
That sounds like she was in
Like-
a past life where she was like in jail or something.
I don't know. But
I
like,
gotta go.
I don't know. But
Isn't your brain is so amazing? It's
it
so
is.
crazy.
It truly is.
Well, that also brings up the whole thing too. If your brain is actually partially like a transmitter or something, because if you can pick up, other frequencies or other wavelengths and that match, something else that's going on with another person that's completely random. And the thing is, nobody really knows if that's the case.
Yeah.
Or not.
Well, it's really weird
Totally.
because that has happened to me where I was thinking of someone and I'm like, I haven't talked to them in a while. Or actually, I was going through like a hard time in my life. I'm like, I wish this person would just call me.
Oh yeah, and then they end
And
up
they
calling
called
you,
me.
and it's like,
Yeah.
boom, there it is.
Weird, yeah.
We are a lot more connected
Yeah.
than you think,
And it's
for sure.
Not only that, it's also
Yeah.
like when you're thinking of a movie or you think of a song or and then all of a sudden it just plays or something happens and it's like, holy crap. And you think about that as like, it happens quite often.
Well, see, I was always interested in psychology. Like when you learn the different parts, like my amygdala does this and that. But the actual, like, no one ever taught me, like, your thoughts arise in your brain and you could choose how you, like, I didn't realize my emotions are just thoughts in my head.
Right.
Like, I don't have to feel extremely sad for this person. Like, I saw a homeless person yesterday, or actually it was this morning, and I feel bad, but normally that would devastate me. I'd be like, why is the world like this? And we got to do better. Like, it ruined my whole day.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, okay, this is the thought that I'm having, and I'm feeling empathy for this person right now. But as soon as there's nothing I could do, I drove by and I let it go.
I admire that you're sensitive, Aaron.
Well, it didn't help me in my life, I don't
Well,
think.
listen, I'm
Well,
just telling you
it's-
from a
no,
woman's
it's a-
perspective.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
admire that you're sensitive.
Okay.
Well, it does help though in certain things because it always comes back to that thing. You have two hands. What do you want to build with those two hands? Do you want to build something that's going to be destructive towards humanity, or do you want to build something that's towards humanity? So there you go. It's a full fucking circle.
Really
oh my goodness.
That's one of my whole messages on the podcast is like we have opposable thumbs that can grab things, and everything that we do with our opposable thumbs, it's how these these sunglasses were made. It's how your phone was made. It's because of our opposable thumbs. So what are you going to do with your thumbs? Are you going to build a weapon of destruction, or are you going to use it to build society in a good way? It's my message.
There you go. That means now maybe you need to be. Yeah. So with that being said, though, we're going to wrap this up because it's starting to get a little late, and I got a lot of shit to do over the next couple hours. So,
all right.
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Chel C, for coming on. Hopefully, we'll do this very soon.
To be continued.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get to the second half of
hopefully we'll do this very soon because it was fun.
It was a good
we enjoy the guests besides just Aaron and I talking.
I know, how exciting.
But yeah, no, you're the first guest, so thank you.
Yeah.
If you want to just give a last minute plug to your channel, YouTube and all that fun stuff.
All right. So my YouTube is Mind, Body, Spirit with Chel. And again, it's more about the holistic views on life and very spiritual things as well. So it's not just holistic, it's everything. So yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. So make sure to subscribe and check out her channel, as she's got a lot of cool stuff.
What is it again?
Mind, Body, Spirit with Chel.
Okay. On YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah. Mind, Body, Spirit with Chel on YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go check that out. I don't know how to subscribe to things, but I'm going to figure it out.
Subscribe to things.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, awesome. What's your quote?
Well, this is perfect for us today.
Oh, good.
He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe.
Love it.
That's a great one.
That was perfect.
All right, everybody. That was the Anything Podcast. Thank you again, Chel C, for coming on.
I was pretending to be Aaron.
You were pretending to be Aaron, and I'm Chris. Have a good night, everybody.